Well, hello everyone. Ross Hamilton here with the great Tim Mai. Tim, say hello.
Hello everybody, this is Tim Mai.
And we're going to have a lot of fun on the training today because what we've been doing is preparing you for this big financial race. You've been getting all the information you need. That's like your nutrition. You've been out there training, building up buyers, building up your buyers list, putting out your signs, doing everything that Tim and I have told you to do. I know you're doing everything because you want to make money, but it's like you're totally prepared for the race, but if you don't follow along on this very special training, it's like doing a race without crossing the finish line. And the finish line here is how to get paid. How to get paid. Tim, this is one of the most important parts of real estate, correct?
That's correct. You know, a lot of people worked really hard on the front end, get the buyers, get the seller, and they dropped the ball here at this part. So this is definitely a very important part to learn, and it's good that you're learning ahead of time now, so that way when you get into it, you're a lot more prepared, and you don't frighten and scare anybody off, and so so this is the preparation time. Get it out of your way. And you are going to learn a lot, of course, when you are actually doing the deal and getting to the closing part. And so you are going to have a lot of I guess live experiential type of learning when that happens. But now we want to teach you now so you know how to structure the deal correctly, so that way it gets you closer to that day, closer to getting paid. And you'll be a lot more confident, too, when you talk to sellers, when you talk to wholesalers, when you talk to buyers, and sound like you know what you're saying and you know what you're doing.
Absolutely, and that's super important here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the modules here. We can start to get ready here for today. I just want to kind of do a quick recap of the last 3 amazingly intense trainings. Tim, before we start, usually I wait till the end to do this, but I just want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and your busy, real estate investing business to come, to come teach us all and share all of your amazing information with us. That's really, it's really awesome, man. I just want to thank you.
Well, I want to thank you as well. I mean, we're both doing this together, and I know your people and my people both appreciate what you are doing, and so I want to thank you as well. I really have been enjoying doing this project with you, and I look forward to do more teaching with you in the future. And we'll together we'll help our people succeed and make a lot of money in this business.
Absolutely, absolutely. But hopefully people are applying what we're learning, because we're really not leaving anything out. Tim, are you holding back any information?
Definitely not. This is the same kind of information that that my coaching students, people who pay me $15,000 a year, get access to. And so now that's my style. I don't hold back on things. When I teach it all out. The only difference between what you're getting here and what the 15,000 people get is the extra hand-holding that they get from me. But as far as the material, what I'm teaching you, I mean, it's it's the same information that I would teach to not only my top students, but I would also teach that to my kids too, and my niece and nephew as well.
Yeah, you got your nieces and nephews out there putting up the sign.
Right.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and do you have any information to kind of prep people before we jump in, or should we start jumping right into how to structure some deals?
Yeah, let's we just remind everybody real quick, right? In Module 1, you learn how to find buyers. In Module 2, you learn how to find sellers. In Module 3, you learn how to line up money to fund your buyers' deals. And so in this module, we're going to teach you how to then structure and put all of the pieces in place, right? The wholesaler, the buyer, the seller, how to put all of that in place so that way you know how you're going to get paid from the deal, and everybody knows how you're going to get paid from the deal legally, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important. How you're going to get paid legally from this, and and be able to move forward and push this along to get paid quickly as well.
Awesome, awesome. All right. So, how to structure a deal. Let's get this deal structured. A lot of people ask questions about this right here because on some of our trainings for connected investors, we'll talk about copying other investors' properties and blasting them out to your buyer's list, but then sometimes people just don't understand, how am I going to make money once someone's interested? What do I do? So we're going to kind of streamline things for you and take you through two common types of closings. We have a double closing and an assignment of contract. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of these, we're just going to kind of do a blanket explanation of a double closing and an assignment of contract. Okay. On the last training, we talked all about finding money, and you need money for a day, if you need transactional funding. If you listened to that training and took some notes, you can probably actually go back to those notes, because what we're going to talk about here is a double closing is when you do what Tim and I told you and you have your buyers already lined up. Remember, to sell a property in 6 hours like Tim can do, you have to have a buyer lined up ahead of time. Okay? But once you have a buyer lined up and you have a seller lined up, you can literally do a double closing to where the owner of the property sells you the property, and then you kind of sell the buyer the property, but it happens at the same time. So you don't have to go to two closings. You just go sign the papers one time, and you would keep the difference. Tim, do you want to help me clarify a little bit on that double closing?
Yeah, the way double closing, and sometimes you hear it as double closing, sometimes you hear it as simultaneous
Simultaneous,
closing,
yeah.
or back-to-back closing. All of that means the same thing. And what it is that as long as it happens on the same calendar day, the title company, they can, it doesn't matter who closed with who first, whether let's say there's three parties, okay? There's the seller, there's you, and then there's the buyer. Whether you close with the seller and then you turn around and close it with the buyer, or you close with the buyer and then turn around and close it with the seller, as long as that happened on the same calendar day, the title company doesn't care which order it happens in. Now, if it goes beyond the same calendar day, then you must close with the seller first, so that way you can have title to the property, and then before you can close with your buyer. And so anything that happens on the same calendar day is normally called double closing, simultaneous closing, or back-to-back closing. Anything that happens beyond that one day, then it's just called a normal closing. Okay, so in our business, in the wholesaling business, double closing or simultaneous closing or back-to-back closing is very common. It's it used to be it used to be a lot more common than it is now. When back then the title companies were a lot more acceptable to it, and even some lenders were acceptable to it. But in today's market, there's not a whole lot of title company that will allow you to do double closing. They still allow you to, the investor-friendly title company will still allow you to do it, and some of them will allow you to use your buyer's money to fund your transaction with the seller. And some title company won't allow you to do that. They want you to use your own money, this is where transactional funding comes in. Won't allow you to use your own money. Once you will only allow you to use your own money, close the transaction with the seller first, and then you can turn around and close with the buyer. In those cases are normally cases with bank REO properties where they are the one that controls the title company, or in case of short sales where the short sale lender will only allow for you to close with them first. And so other than those two cases, all you have to do is just find a title company that is willing to let you do a double closing with your buyer, as long as your buyer is either using cash, like real cash, or they are using a private lender or a hard money lender, that those private lenders and hard money lenders approves how you're closing the deal, that they understand that you're using their money to fund the transaction that you're buying as well. And most private lender and hard money lenders understand our business, and so they don't care that that's the case. They're like, yeah, that's fine. And so if they give the okay to the title company will be okay, that's fine. And everybody, everybody in the transaction is disclosed, and everybody's happy. Okay.
Yeah, and again, this guy's, trying to explain this is actually probably more difficult than actually doing it.
Right.
If this is when your network, this is when your relationships that you've made throughout the training are going to come in handy, because we showed you how to find investors that are flipping deals like crazy in the last training, and
right.
We advocated sitting down with them, chatting with them. I mean, if this is something that even at the end of the call kind of, if you're still unclear with, that's why Tim and I push so hard for you to go to your RIAs, go to your meetup groups, do this, because you're going to know what questions to ask after you're done with all of this training. If you've done a few
right.
deals, it's clicking for you in 2 seconds. But guys, you really, you got to get out of webinar world and get into the real world and start networking with people who are doing deals in your town. This way, when you have a buyer lined up, you have a seller lined up, you've heard the terms like back-to-back closings and double closings, and you can just, ask your new buddy, hey, give me a little refresher on that, and
right.
he'll be able to help you out and probably even point you in the right direction.
Right, and if you've been networking with wholesalers, like Ross and I've been teaching you, these guys close these type of deals all the time. So they'll tell you exactly which title company they're using. So you don't even have to go hunt it yourself. Whatever title company they tell you, chances are that title company will do a double closing without you using your own funds, and you can use your buyer's funds, and so you wouldn't have any issue with that at all. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so so we'll leave double closing to that. I mean, once you get into the deal, like Ross said, it'll be a lot more simple, because you'll be referred to a title company that will know how to do these things. Even if not, just ask whoever the wholesaler or the investor that you're working with. They'll tell you, and they'll work you through this. And
you can probably even call your RIA. You can probably even call your RIA organizer and say, hey, does anyone know an attorney that will do a back-to-back closing or title company? And you can post it in the Connected Investors forum and do deals for
right.
them. You should be able to get some pretty fast response.
Right, and if you contact your RIA, there's a chance that those title company or attorney advertises with your RIA. So they know the business inside out, and they're an advertiser, they're a vendor. If your RIA has a vendor program, then yeah, anybody from RIA should be able to refer you to one as well.
Yeah.
Now, for you starting out, if this is your first deal, the easiest type of closing for you to do is going to be an assignment.
Yes.
And an assignment is super easy. Basically, it's like one-page little document that says, I assign my rights, my interest in this property, in this contract over to you for a fee. So let's say I have a contract with a seller, okay? Let's say Nicolas Cage house was up for foreclosure not too long ago. And let's say if I had came to Nicolas Cage and said, hey, I want to buy your house before you get foreclosed on it. And I got a contract with Nicolas Cage, and I know that Ross is looking for this really nice house for him and his young wife, because they're going to build a family soon. And I go to Ross and I said, hey, Ross, I got this property, man. It's worth like, $1 billion, and I got it in the contract for $1 million. It's a sweet deal. I will assign you my contract, and I will charge you $1 million to assign my interest to you. And it's still a great deal to you. It's worth $1 billion. You're getting it for $2 million. And Ross said, yeah, I'll do that. So
let me just go to my private lender, Oprah.
Right. So Ross goes to Oprah and get a private money loan. And all I do is I sign over this agreement with Ross and said, hey, Ross, I'm going to assign all of my rights and interests in this contract that I have with Nicolas Cage. And at closing, when you close on this deal, you're going to pay me $1 million for my assignment of contract. So in the end, at closing, Ross is going to close the deal, and he's going to pay $2 million, $1 million to the seller, to Nicolas Cage, and $1 million to me for the assignment fee. Is that
basically, you're just selling a piece of paper. But.
Right, you are. In an assignment, you're not selling any house. You don't ever own the house. All you're doing is you're selling a piece of paper. You're selling your rights into that piece of paper, and you never take title. In a double closing, you do take title. So in a double closing, here's how the deed works. Okay, the seller deeds the house to you, assuming you're the wholesaler in the middle. The seller deeds the house to you, and you deed the house to your buyer, okay? And the buyer deposits the funds to the title company, and the title company takes that money and distribute whatever money to the seller, and then whatever's left distribute to you, and that's how a double closing works. And in an assignment, there's only one deed that gets transferred, okay? So at closing, the seller deeds the house to the buyer. The buyer deposits the money to the title company or the attorney or the escrow company, and that title company will then will then pay the seller whatever is owed to the seller, and pay to you whatever is owed to you in your assignment fee. And so there's only one HUD-1 that happens, one settlement statement that happens in an assignment closing just between the seller and the buyer. In a double closing, there's two HUD-1 settlement statements. There's one between the seller and you, and another one between you and the buyer. Is that easy enough?
I think after they do it a few times, they're like, oh, this is like clockwork. Guys, you're either selling a piece of paper or you're buying a piece of property and selling a piece of property the same day. You know, the attorney,
right.
The title company, all of the paperwork, they structure all the paperwork. You just have to tell them what you want to do. Now, Tim, if you had the option, I would say assign the contract, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that is, you know, I prefer for you to do that way. Number one, it's easier. Number two, it's cheaper. It doesn't cost you any closing costs. Whatever closing costs you have goes to your buyer. Your buyer pays for it. It's just you know, between just your buyer and the seller, you just get your assignment fee. But if there's a double closing involved, then there's a closing cost that happens when you buy the property with the seller, and then there might be some closing costs when you sell the property between you and your buyer as well. So yes, assignment of contract is my preference. And assignment of contract, you can go to any title company. I don't care which one it is. All title company will do assignment of contract.
Yeah. So you know, always try to sell the contract first. If you can't for some reason, then you move into the double closing.
Right.
Okay.
Normally the way
I was going to say, if you can't do that, if you have some connections, there's some other pretty ninja tactics that you can do to get the deal closed. If you have a buyer, you can get the deal closed.
Right.
We're not going to have time to go over them on the call right now, but you know, just through networking and saying, hey, what can I do? The local investors that are doing deals will be able to help you out. Right.
Exactly. And yeah, and like for me, the way I decide whether to use double closing or assignment, normally if I'm going to make less than $15,000 on the deal for my fee, for my wholesale fee, then I would just assign the contract. But if I'm going to make more than make 15,000 or more, then I would do double closing because I don't want the seller nor the buyer try to renegotiate down the price, my fee down at the closing table. And so, you know, that's the only time when I do it. But I have closed on deals where I make, you know, I make a lot more than 15,000 that I did the assignment anyways. And I'll give you an example of this deal. I mean, it's like the absolute craziest deal, and everybody walked away from this deal happy. And this is really important.
Let's hear it.
All right, so a bird dog brought a deal to me. Brand new bird dog. Got this really sweet deal. The guy works at the same dealership as the car dealership as the seller, and the seller owns this house that he kind of have forgotten about. And the reason why, yeah, he forgot that he still owned this house. And the reason why he remembered that he still owned this house is because the homeowner association is trying to foreclose on him, and they tracked him down and served him with this foreclosure paperwork. And the house is, you know, the house needs a lot of repairs. It's worth a lot of money, but it needs a lot of repairs. And the homeowner association dues were like to get it out of foreclosure is like $3,000. And this wholesaler or bird dog that brought the deal to me, this is like his first deal, brand new. And he was trying to sell it for, and he got it under, he got an agreement with the seller for basically around $8,000 for the yeah, $8,000, $3,000 pays off the homeowner association, and the seller gets $5,000. And you know, he sold it to someone else already for 40-something thousand, and for whatever reason, the buyer that he sold it to, I guess, didn't have enough time to close on it, so they chickened out and they backed out on it. The foreclosure was about to happen on Tuesday, and this is Thursday evening. And this bird dog was referred by someone else to me because, you know, I'm very active in my market and people know that I can close quickly. This is very important, that you let people know you can close quickly. So it can't,
even if you can't sometimes.
Yeah, even if you can't. And in this case, I didn't, but here's what I did. So so they contacted me on Thursday, and they ran some numbers over the phone with me, and I said, you know, I said, well, you know, based on what you're telling me, the most I can offer you is $40,000 because because it's going to foreclosure on Tuesday, and it's really tough to close that quick. And so the bird dog agreed to sell it to me for $40,000. And I know this is a really sweet deal, okay? So what I did, I picked up the phone, called just a few of my VIP customers and said, hey, look, I have this deal, and I have to be able to close on it in 7 days. And I'm going to give you a really good price on this deal. I'll sell it to you for $65,000 if you can close it in 7 days. And I didn't have 7 days, by the way. Remember, the auction was happening on Tuesday. But I know how to work my thing, and I'll share with you. So a couple of my landlords went out there and looked at it, and one of them wanted it. And I said, okay, here's what I need. I need $5,000 down, $5,000 deposit today, and then I'll give you another 7 days to close on it. So so that Thursday night, I met up with my landlord buyer, got $5,000. On Friday morning, I went to the homeowner association and homeowner association and find out how much was the reinstatement amount to get for them to stop the foreclosure. I know that it was only $3,000 something because that's what the wholesaler had told me. And so I went there and I paid $3,000, whatever change it was, $3,000 something. and got the house out of foreclosure. So now the house is not is not going to be foreclosed on Tuesday anymore.
Nice.
Right? And I didn't have to use any of my money. I used my buyer's money, and this is why it's important for you to have your cash buyers line out. I used my buyer's $5,000. I paid $3,000 something to get it get the house out of foreclosure. At closing, the buyer assigned me his contract from the seller. I assigned my contract to my buyer. So everybody, there's 4 people in this transaction, they saw how much money I was making out of this deal. And the seller also saw how much money the wholesaler that was wholesaling the deal to me was making out of money. But to the seller, he's happy with his $5,000 because he didn't even know that he still owned this house.
Oh my gosh!
I know,
oh, great! I thought I was going to lose it. Now I just made $5,000.
Right. Well, not only he thought. No, the thing is this: before he got the notice that he was being foreclosed on, he did not even know that he still owned this house. He bought it on owner financing. He bought it on owner financing, and he probably didn't realize he paid it off, and he had let go of this house for a long time, like over 10 years. And so he thought that, you know, the homeowner association or whoever probably had took over this house a long time ago. So it was a very interesting situation. But the point being is that at the end of the day, we all made a lot of money, and everybody was happy.
There you go, guys. It's a win-win. You solved a lot of people's problems there, though.
Right, right.
You solved a lot of people. It's about being a real estate problem solver, and that deal right there is an absolute perfect example.
Right.
Yeah,
and,
I've
yeah, that's how we get paid in this business, guys. You know, don't think that you are in this business and the way you make your money is you find a deal at a cheap price and then you turn around and sell it for more is how you make your money. No, that is not how you make money in this business. If that is your mindset of how you make money, then you are going to be very limited on the type of deals that you can do and the number of deals that you can do. The way we make money in this business is to bring value to the table by being able to solve a problem that the seller can't solve, the buyer can't solve, or the wholesaler can't solve. Okay? Like in my case, nobody knew how to close this deal quick, right? The wholesaler had attempted it, but he couldn't do it because his buyer backed out on him. And nobody in the transaction knew that they can just pay $3,000 to the homeowner association and got the house out of foreclosure. And you know, and nobody was able to find a buyer, a cash buyer, quick enough. And so my value that I brought to the table was my expertise, that even though this house needs a lot of work, I know which buyer is going to buy it. Even though this house was up for foreclosure in just a couple of days away, not business days away, that I know how to get it out of foreclosure or stop the foreclosure and give the buyer enough time to close on it. And so that's how I made my money in this transaction. And so you always think about that. It's like, what value am I going to bring to this table for me to deserve to get paid what I'm getting paid for it?
And then also, Tim, I just want to point out a few things because now that we're talking about actually closing the deal, everything that we've talked about in the previous trainings is coming together. Tim not only had his buyer, but he had his buyer's hot list. We went over building a buyer's hot list. Okay, he had everything lined up ahead of time. So the trainings that we went over for the past few weeks, I've been getting all of that set up so those pieces will fall right in place. Even building your network, building your list of investors who can do deals so you can get help through these deals. And even maybe a deal like Tim did, maybe you'll be able to navigate it and figure it out, but if not, there's enough room in deals like that to where you can bring an experienced investor on and possibly work with them, learn something, make some money. There's enough to go around.
Right.
All righty. Well, great story, man. I'm excited that deal worked out so well.
Yeah, it worked out really well.
So where does that leave us here? Are we on assigned standard purchase sale agreement, flex option? Okay. We went over a lot just in that one example, but we'll break it down for you. Okay. So, Tim, let's talk a little bit about the flex option to purchase wholesale deals. Now, guys, if you don't have a flex option contract, you can get that inside Do Deals, and also there's a lot of, if you don't have these contracts, Tim and I can get them for you. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Tim, you're kind of a famous flex option guy. Let's go ahead and I'll let you lead the way here.
Okay. Yeah. So so in module number 2, I talk about how to control these wholesale deals with a flex option. And so there's three main contracts and forms that you need to use in this transaction that we're talking about. One is a flex option, so you can control the wholesale deal, give you the permission to market that deal for sale. And then 2 is the standard purchase and sales agreement, which if you are going to do a double closing, you're going to need that, or that you're going to get that from the wholesaler if the wholesaler is going to assign the deal over to you. All right, and the third type of contract that you're going to need to do this is an assignment of contract, right? This is for when you want to assign your deal over to your buyer and let your buyer go and close it with your seller. And so we're making this whole wholesaling business really simple for you, and you don't have to get confused with a bunch of contracts and paperwork. All 3 of these contracts could just be one-page contract. So there's a total of 3 sheets with 3 pages here, 3 different contracts. You don't have to use anything very complicated, unless you're in a state where the title company or the attorney prefer for you to use a state-specific contract. Then that's the only time when you use a state-specific contract. Otherwise, you can just use a simple one-page contract, very easy to do. Very easy to use. And so basically, step number 1 is that you are going to I'll go ahead and lead on to this this deal structure. Currently, you have the seller and the wholesaler. They have a contract with each other, okay, a standard purchase and sales agreement, okay, and you're going to get a flex option to purchase the wholesale deal from that wholesaler. So that agreement is between the wholesaler and you, the wholesale marketer, okay. Now, if there is no wholesaler in the middle, if there's just you and the seller, then you will take the role of this wholesaler, okay. In that case, then you would just have a standard purchase and sales agreement, and you wouldn't have a flex option to purchase wholesale deals. Right? So there's just one less party to worry about there. Okay. And once you find a buyer, then what's going to happen is there's still a contract, a standard purchase and sales agreement between the seller and the wholesaler, and the wholesaler now is going to assign his contract over to you, okay? That's the wholesaler and you're going to assign that contract that you just got over to the buyer. You got that? So there's 2 assignments that happens here. This is assuming that there are 4 parties here. If there's no wholesaler involved, if there's just the seller, you, and the buyer, then there'll just be one less assignment of contract. So like you would remove that, okay? If there's only those 3 parties, those 3 parties involved. And so if this confuses you, just go back and listen to this again, and maybe you can write it down yourself so you can see the flow of it.
Pause it, write it down. We're just showing how the paper basically changes hands.
Correct.
You have a homeowner who says, yes, I want to sell it. They sign a piece of paper. That person has that piece of paper. They go to you, and you're like, you know what? that's a good deal, let me buy your piece of paper. You buy the piece of paper off that person, and you sell the piece of paper one more time to someone else. So it's just kind of showing a paper trail of where the contracts go through and the contracts you're going to be looking at. And sometimes these names will change, but it's all the same.
Right. So, all right. So let's give you an example so you can see how the flow of contract happens. Okay. And this is very similar to the example I was sharing earlier. So let's say you found a buyer and you're going to tell your buyer, okay, buyer, here's what we're going to do. I have this property, and I'm just going to assume that you got this property under flex option with a wholesaler. Okay, so you have the seller, which is the homeowner, the current homeowner. You have the wholesaler who did all of the hard work, negotiated deal, got that property under contract. You have the smart wholesale marketer who shortcut your way to success by connecting with that wholesaler and market their property for sale. And then from what you've learned from me and Ross, you go and apply that, and you now have a cash buyer. So now you tell your cash buyers, like, hey, all right, I got this property under contract. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to assign my contract over to you. Okay? I'm going to assign my contract over to you, and what I'm going to need is and depending on the deal, you know, the amount of deposit is going to be a little bit different. But let's say you're only going to collect $1,000 deposit, earnest money deposit from your buyer. So you're going to say, okay, buyer, I am going to assign this contract over to you, and I need you to put $1,000 deposit into it, and you're going to pay for the balance of the property and the assignment fee at closing. Okay, and so here's what's going to happen. You're going to then go back to the wholesaler and says, hey, wholesaler, I found a buyer. Great news. So here's what I'm going to do. I need you to convert the flex option we have into an assignment form. So then the wholesaler is going to assign his contract with the seller over to you, and you're going to assign your contract over to the buyer. Okay, and make sure you get the copy of the original contract between the seller and the wholesaler, so that way you know what the wholesaler is assigning to you for. When somebody assigns you something, they are assigning their rights from that contract to you. And along with that rights, there's also obligations. Okay, and so you want to know what kind of obligations and rights you are being assigned to. So make sure you get a copy of that original contract between the seller and the buyer and the wholesaler, so you know exactly what the price was, who's going to pay for closing costs, you know, how long you have to close. All of that things are written out in the contract, and you know what you're getting. Okay. And then you also
very important there, guys. Always take a look at, always read through the paperwork. You know, the contracts won't be too. If it's a wholesaler, typically all the contracts are really short and concise and to the point, so you don't have to worry about that. But you know, make sure to read it over. If you're not good at reading contracts, you know, you should definitely find someone who is.
Right. All right. So okay. So yeah. So and then same thing. You are going, when you assign your contract to your buyer, you're also going to give a copy of the original contract to your buyer, so your buyer knows what they are getting into, right? What they're having to pay for the whole transaction of how much money they need to bring. Now, you know, most of these buyers that you're dealing with, the real estate investors, so they're professional buyers, they don't care how much money you're making out of the deal, as long as it's a good deal for them and they're going to make good money on it. They really don't care how much money you make or how much money the wholesaler makes. You know, when you're dealing with like private individuals, it's when you have more of those type of concerns. But for these wholesalers, for these, for these investors, investor buyers, they really don't care. Okay.
Yeah, they already know. If they're moving forward with you, they're happy with the price.
Right. And so you're going to assign that contract over to your buyer. You're going to collect your $1,000 earnest money from the buyer, and you're going to take all three of these, the sales contract, the assignment contract, and your assignment contract with your buyer, and submit all of them to the title company. In a lot of cases, the wholesaler had already opened title with the title company when he got his property under contract. In that case, then you just need to submit these two assignment contracts over to the title company, and they will know exactly how they need to distribute the funds to get you your money out of this deal. Okay? And this $1,000 earnest money here, I normally have them write the check out to me or to my title company, not my title company, I'm sorry, to me or my company's name. So I keep this $1,000 earnest money. I don't turn this in over to the title company. At closing, I just tell the title company to deduct $1,000 from the assignment between me and the buyer. So let's say my assignment fee is $10,000. Since I already got $1,000 up front, at closing, I just get $9,000 more, and I just let the title company know that I already got $1,000 up front. Okay? You have any comments on that, Ross?
No, this is just something that I'm looking at it. I'm sitting here looking at it through the eyes of someone who hasn't done any deals yet. If you've done some deals, we're helping you fill in some of the pieces of some of the deals you've done and got a little, and might not have been able to profit on quite as much. But if you've never done a deal before, I definitely suggest, just kind of drawing it out on a piece of paper and, connecting the dots, and then jumping on our, Q&As and asking us specific questions. It's all laid out here, but if it's your first time seeing it, it's your first time seeing it.
Right.
So we're moving along here. It's looking good. This is the.
Yeah, note that.
Put one in your pocket here.
Right. All right. I want to make a disclaimer here. I know that if you're brand new at this and you haven't closed on a deal before, some of the stuff that I'm sharing with you might be a little bit too detailed, and it's a little bit over your head. But the thing is, see, just like what Ross and I was talking about at the beginning, we don't want to leave anything out. We want you to understand the whole transaction of exactly what goes on, so that way you build up your confidence to go out there and do deals. One of the reasons that I hear a lot when a student don't go out there and do a deal is because they're like, well, I'm the type that needs to know everything before I can take action, before I can move forward. And so Ross and I are not holding anything back, and we're giving it to you in a very detailed, specific way, and because we want to prepare you as much as we can. Just keep in mind that once you have a deal going, you're going to learn all of these things really quick.
Yeah, and we're giving you the left, the right, the up, the down. Your deal is pretty much one way, and through jumping on Q&As with Tim and I, and everything that we have available for you, we can help you with your one specific deal. And then again, we also advocate, building relationships with local investors who are doing a lot of deals, and deals like this go on in my head when I'm sleeping. I mean, this is nothing to me, but only because I've been through hundreds of deals. My first few times, it was a little bit sloppy when I did it, but I still pushed through. So, Tim, that was a real good point. Again, guys, we're not leaving anything out. We could have skipped over deal making and just given you all the shiny this and that, but then whenever someone was asking about title insurance, you would have been like, what? Or who? Or who? Am I supposed to do that? So just remember, guys, we're just laying it all out on the table here, and this is the last training, so there's a lot of little detailed, important notes that we would feel not right about leaving out. So although it's not all, glitter and button pressing automation, this is what makes millionaires. So we don't want to leave anything out here.
Yep.
Keep on,
yeah.
keep on.
You want to lead this part, Ross?
All right.
We're in
Tim,
part 2 now.
Part 2, how to coordinate closings with the title companies. Just looking back through here. Okay. All right, guys. So once you have your buyer lined up, once you have your deal on the table, it's time to get the deal closed. You're going to do so through a title company or attorney. Okay, and these people have a lot of knowledge about closings. So all the crazy directions that Tim and I have given you here, which may seem like gibberish or jargon in your head right now, these guys also do it in their sleep as well. So whenever you tell them what you're trying to do, they're the ones that ultimately do it. They're the ones who make sure all the paperwork's together, and they're not going to close a deal if you're not giving them the right paperwork. So I actually used to learn a lot because of my attorney and other investors I worked with. So just take that in mind, right? So what you're going to do here is whenever you're going to your title company and you have your buyer lined up and you have the property that you're going to sell, it's time to submit all the contracts and assignments. So you're going to have this kind of crazy mess, this like trail of paperwork, kind of this paper went from me to him, from him to him, from him to me, and now I'm closing on it. Okay, so right here, Tim, when you're talking about asking for a title commitment,
yeah, basically what a title commitment is they do a title search. So after you submit all of your contracts and assignments, they're going to start to do a title search, and within depending on how busy they are, within 5 to 7 days they are going to return back to you the title search and the title commitment, saying that, all right, here are all of the liens that we found, and given that we clear out all of these liens, we will provide you with a title policy. All right, we are committed to giving you a title policy, given we clean out all of these liens and judgments and whatever have you. Right?
Okay.
And so that's what they.
I'll jump back in here, Tim. I've always used. There's all sorts of different terminology in real estate. I have a little real estate dictionary that I still pull out to this date. Title commitment, title search. Whenever you are getting ready to close on a property, I like to kind of preliminary. I like to jump in and do my own little, because I know how to do a title search. I like to kind of do a little title search ahead of time sometimes, but you don't have to know how to do that just yet. But once you have a deal ready to close, they're going to take a look if there's anything funky on the title. And guys, sometimes there is, and they're going to tell you. There may be a, one of the most common little funks I see on title is whenever a neighborhood maybe does some road constructions, or does something for the neighborhood. They make everyone in the neighborhood pay $3,000. You ever seen that before, Tim? And then, well, what will happen is the person will pay a little portion toward that every single month, but if the property sells, you got to pay it all off. So sometimes there's like a weird little, $1,000 or $2,000 lien against the property, and this is going to kind of pull back the curtain on the property and let you know everything that's in there. So when it says find out if there's any title issues that need to be cleared out, this is going to happen. I would say, Tim, how many times do you find something on title that you weren't aware of?
A lot. when you're dealing with motivated sellers, especially if you're dealing with like foreclosure situations. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of time that there's title issues that you weren't aware of, or the seller wasn't aware of. they think that the only thing that they have is the mortgage. And even with the mortgage, like they think that the payoff is the amount that the principal balance is. The principal balance is not the payoff amount. And you know, and so there's issues like that. And even though I say a lot, but they don't have to be very big issues. They can just be very small issues, like homeowner association dues. You know, similar to the neighborhood fees that that Ross was talking about, or maybe there's some back taxes, or maybe yeah,
back
like
taxes. Back taxes is a big one.
Right. I got a deal where the back taxes went back like 10 years or something, where something happened and there was a year that they didn't pay for the taxes, and there was like a very old one that they totally completely forgot about, and you know, and so that could have happened. So it might be small, or sometimes it could be not on the property, but it's on the person, like a judgment. Like I had a case where there was a, I forgot, it was a phone bill. The phone company put a judgment against the seller, you know, for a few $100, small amount, but still, there's something there that needs to be cleared out. And so you want to know what those issues are, so you can ask the title company, hey, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to help you with to clear these things? A lot of time, they don't need you to do anything. They just contact those lien holders and find out what the payoff is, and then they put it into their HUD to pay it off. Or sometimes, like you know, let's say if there was you know, an IRS issue or whatever, where they need the seller's social security number, they need the seller's you know, to sign extra documents, or whatever the case might be, then they will let you know. It's like, hey, I need to get a hold of the seller, or I need the seller to sign this and this document. And of course, they can contact the seller and get all of those information from the seller. For me, I like to provide a lot of value to my sellers, and so I typically will communicate with the title company and say, okay, what is it that you need? I'll get it all for you. Right? You just tell me what you need. I'll get it for you. I'll make your job easy. I'll make the seller's job easy, and so that way I can push this to closing much quicker, because I don't want to wait around for the seller to take a week or 2 weeks to get some documents over. And so that's some of the values that you bring to the table. Or you know, if like when I was dealing with vacant houses, I had a lot of probate and inheritance cases. So in those cases, I need to get the court's final documents, or I need to get you know, or I need to get like a heirship affidavit, or things like that, that the title company, they will tell me, it's like, hey, here's what I need you to get for me, here's what I need to get signed, and the attorney will prepare all of the documents that they need, but they just need sort of like someone to, you know, to
be like the liaison, or
right, you know,
play middleman there to speed it up.
Right, to speed it up. And so I like for my team to be very proactive in that regard. On your first deal, you might not know how to do any of these things, and so all you're going to do is you just follow up with the title company. You know, it's like, hey, is the title okay? What do you need? You need to get a hold of the seller. Here's the seller's phone number. This is what time you can get a hold of the seller. And so you just need them. You just need to provide them with all of the contact information for the wholesaler, the seller, and but as things get along, and you get good with this, and now you start to know how to clear title issues. You know how to do, and this is not to confuse you or anything, but just to let you know, you might know how to clear title issues for back taxes, for IRS liens. You might know how to do a partial release You might know how to negotiate a short payoff or discount it on some of these liens.
Oh yeah, a lot of money. I've made a lot of money there before, Tim.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, this is sometimes with one phone call can make you an extra BMW.
Yes, you know, I have plenty of time gotten IRS liens of you know, a lot of money, even $1 million removed from the property because I know how to deal with them. And you know, and so you, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways, a lot of things you could do. And this is not something you have to worry about now. What I'm trying to tell you,
we're really giving you guys, we're really, you know, throwing it all on the table here, guys. This is
right. But the more you communicate with the title company about these title issues and what they need you to help them with, the faster it is for you to learn how to fix these issues yourself. Mm-hmm. So basically, you're getting the title company to train you to fix these title issues, so that way later on your other deals, when you have title issues, you're able to clear it out very quickly. And what I did, because I got really good with fixing title issues, I let other investors know. It was like, hey, anytime you have a deal that has title issues that for whatever reason you can't close on it, or you're having trouble with it, bring it to me. I will clear the title issues. I will buy it from you.
Golden nuggets. Oh my gosh. Well, I never even thought of that before, Tim. Wow.
Yeah. And you wouldn't believe how many deals I've done because of that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of investors, especially the newbie investors, they don't know how to fix these things. And so they throw away these deals, or these deals blow up on them. And so they come to me and they said, hey, Tim, I have this deal. I'll sell it to you for $1,000. I'll sign you my contract and you deal with it. I was like, okay.
Wow. That's awesome. But typically whenever you hear the expression, whenever you see an investor or even a real estate agent, anyone in real estate who is all excited because they think they're flipping a deal, then the deal falls apart, and they're like, oh, the deal fell apart, that's where it falls apart.
Right.
That right there is typically where it falls apart. So that's a big problem. And Tim stepped in, and instead of, you know, running away from the issues, he's like, hey, these aren't that difficult to deal with. Yeah, bring me your deals. And people are just giving him deals. Wow.
Right. So I'll show you one. You know, and I'm using case studies here to hopefully teach you a different way of teaching you, and you'll be able to absorb this. But in our business, in this wholesaling business, price cures all. I don't care how ugly the house is. I don't care how much work the house needs. I don't care how much title problem the houses have. With the right price, it fixes all of those problems. And here's why. I have a house that has a lien on it. And the lien was from RTC, which is the company that the government hired to clear out all of these HUD foreclosures back in the 80s. Well, RTC went out of business. They went bankrupt. And so there's nobody that I can track down to sign the release of lien for me to close this property. And so I, you know, what I did is I went to my real estate attorney and asked him, what is the law on when would the lien automatically get removed from a property if you know, after it expires and nobody claims it. So basically, once the lien expires, 3 years later, that lien is automatically removed from the property. So most buyers would have ran away from this problem because they can't get clear title. What I did is I told my buyers, like, look, the lien is about the lien is about to expire, and and so after that you have 3 years and this lien will be completely off. You still can get title insurance for it now. It's just that you have to. There's an exception of that lien, so they'll protect you from any other liens except for that one lien. And so all you have to do is rent your property out for a few years, and then after that you can sell to whoever you want. And because of this title issue, I will sell it to you for a lot less than than without the title issue. And so the property was worth, right. So the property was worth like almost $90,000 bucks. The rental in that neighborhood is at least $800 a month. I sold to my buyer for $40,000 bucks.
Ooh, steal.
Ross, if you were a buyer, do you mind waiting a few years to get the lien cleared off?
No, not at all. That's awesome. And because of that little lien, Tim's able to use like the nibble technique. You go back to the seller, and you can just kind of keep beating them up a little bit because now no one in the world's going to buy this deal.
Right.
They're going to be like, man, I'm stuck with this thing. I'm going to have a tax something against my credit. Oh no. And then Tim's like, well, I'll still buy it, but for $17. I mean, for properties like that, okay. Sometimes people will literally give you properties like that because they're so overwhelmed with it.
It's fun. It's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly what I did. And by the time that we were done with that deal, the seller ended up getting like $3,000 bucks out of it because there was also some back taxes as well. But yeah, it was a really sweet deal. The seller was happy. Now he don't have any back taxes. Now he doesn't have any liens anymore. And I was happy, and my buyer was happy. So we all made money.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
Yep.
Well, great. So we just went over find out if there's any title issues. Not only did we go over that, we also told you all of the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the left to right that's going to happen when you look back on 50 deals. We're not talking about looking at your first deal. We're saying whenever you look back over 50 or 100 deals, you're going to have a few situations to where you had to get some things figured out. Tim had who you're marketing to, how many of these situations are going to pop up. I'd say probably about 10% of my deals had a weird little title issue, and out of those 10%, only a very, very small fraction were more than a couple of phone calls to get cleared up. So, but the attorney's going to let you know, the title company's going to let you know if there's any title issues. Once you understand, Tim gave you a few PowerPoints there. Once you understand how to look up title on a property, then when you're negotiating with a seller, you can beat them up like a champ right from the beginning. That's just a little ninja tactic that I use because I can just pull up title on a property and find most things, not everything. Okay, so now after the attorney comes back, the title company comes back and says, yes, Ross, there's clear title to this property. We're ready to close. Now you're going to ask for a preliminary HUD-1 settlement statement. And what this is going to do is outline all of the costs associated with closing on this property, how much closing cost there is, how much the first mortgage is for, the second mortgage is for, any liens or judgments that are owed on the property. This is basically going to take that title search and slap it on a piece of paper with all of the numbers laid out, including how much, if you're doing a double closing, it's going to show exactly how much you're making. So this is something you're definitely going to want to review and make sure that there's nothing extra on those HUD-1 settlement statements. I like to go over this line by line with my attorney and say, what's this? What's this? Because sometimes, and Tim, let me know if you've ever experienced it, when I'm doing a double closing, attorneys will try to charge for 2 closings. And
exactly.
Most of the time, if you look at your HUD settlement, you're like, you're charging me for 2 closings? Like, yeah, well, we're closing with you and closing with them, but they're not really doing 2 closings. Yes, they are doing 2 closings, but they're not because they're only looking up title for one. They're only doing everything really one time, and they're just kind of transferring some numbers. So if you ever see an attorney try to slap 2 closings on your double closing, I would definitely negotiate with them, see if you can get a little bit better of a deal. But then also you can transfer some of those costs onto your buyer and your seller. This way, none of that money comes out of your pocket. Tim, when you're looking at a HUD-1 settlement statement, what do you typically look for?
Well, I mean, yeah, you're typically just looking for what are all of the fees that are being charged, who is it being charged to, And I mean, title company makes mistakes like what Ross is talking about all the time, and sometimes it's a on-purpose mistake, sometimes it's accidental mistakes. And so you just want to know what are all of the numbers are, how much closing cost that the seller, is going to be on the seller, and how much the seller's going to net out of the deal, how much closing cost is on the buyer, so that way you can tell the buyer how much money to bring to closing, and then making sure that your name is also on there, so that way they can the check to you as well. And so those are the things you need to know. Just watch those numbers. I mean, you don't really need to become an expert at HUD-1 settlement statement or anything, but it's nothing more than a little spreadsheet with a few numbers that says, all right, seller, you have these costs. Buyers, you have these costs. Sellers, you're going to get this much at closing, and buyer, you're going to need to bring this much money at closing, and wholesaler, here's going to be your assignment fee.
Yeah, it's like the monetary bullet points.
Right.
It's just bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. Here you go. All these costs equal this cost. Again, you don't have to be an expert on paperwork to do these deals. Kind of a very sad but true fact is before I started investing in real estate, before I had met real estate, because I didn't have any investors to work with, so I was like, all right, well, let me go ahead and become a real estate agent so I can learn all the terminology. And I really focused on the class, but I had a really hard time on the HUD part of it. And when I took my first state test, I failed it because I got like the HUD wrong. You don't have to know how to do it to be able to do deals. And then I never became a real estate agent, thank God.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, I said this is the first time I've actually mentioned that on a webinar like this. But yeah, I thought I'd become a real estate agent at first to learn the paperwork and the terminology. Failed the state test by like 1 or 2 questions, whatever. I got the whole HUD wrong. And then I met my mentor and I said, hey, should I become a real estate agent to learn how to do deals? And he said, do you want to do deals or do you want to show kitchens? I said, I want to do deals. He's like, then you don't need a license. He's like, I recommend you don't get one. And he told me to, believe it or not, Tim, he told me to get properties under contract and sell them to people at the RIA. So he told me to do the exact same thing that we're going over with you guys. But you don't have to be an expert on the preliminary HUD statement to get a deal closed. All right. Let's keep it moving. The survey. Does the seller have an existing survey on the property? Nowadays online, on the tax websites, you can kind of see a rough survey. And through some of the resources that we gave you, we showed you where to go to look up all sorts of different stuff, all different sorts of different tax info. A lot of times your county courthouse website will have surveys of all the properties. But if a seller has an existing survey, it's a really nice tool to have. I like to ask for that right in the very beginning, because when I'm trying to sell a property and I have like a sketched out survey, it just makes it seem a little realer. Sometimes you'll walk to a property and there'll be a fence across the back side of the property I actually live in. In my backyard, whenever I first looked at it, there was this fence. And then there was about, I'd say, I don't know, 50 feet, and then another fence. And I'm like, whose land is that in between here? Because it's just nice land just sitting there. And it wasn't until I did a little research myself that I found out that that was my land. And the reason that the original homeowner put the fence there is because that's where they like to throw all their grass clippings and all of their, their yard work stuff. They just didn't want to deal with it, so they kind of put the fence in the wrong spot. So sometimes you'll be pleasantly surprised. Sometimes you're not going to be too happy. I've looked at surveys before and realized that the house that I thought I was selling is sitting on someone else's land. You ever seen that one before, Tim?
Oh, man. Nope.
Wow. And there's all sorts of different things. There was some sort of an easement, and the property didn't get built in the right spot, and that's why they were trying to sell it really cheap. And, So I've had a few deals to where the survey was the tool that that helped me not get in trouble. And then actually I was able to work out a deal with the landowner next door who owned the other piece of land, and wound up getting the deal closed. But surveys are super important, especially if the seller has one.
Right.
Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So yeah, if the seller has one, that's great. If the seller doesn't have one, then sometimes the buyer might want one, and if a buyer wants one, then the buyer can negotiate with the seller for the seller to pay for it, or the buyer can pay for it themselves. Different areas, the survey is a little bit going to cost differently, but like here in Houston, surveys cost us about $300 to $350. So it's not a lot of money to get a survey done. Most private money and hard money lender does not require to have a survey for them to close on the deal. Now, if you're ever dealing with like a normal mortgage company or bank, then they will always require for there to be a survey, whether there's an existing survey or a new survey. But they will always require a survey for them to close on it. But for private lenders and hard money lenders, they don't really care. So in that case, then it's up to your buyer, if your buyer cares for it or not. For me, like when I buy, most of the time, if the seller has it, that's great. I don't care to buy one, but there's sometimes when I do buy one. I'll give you another example, which is similar to what Ross experienced. I bought a property, and I noticed there was a really big lot right next to the property, and so when I did my title search, I found out that the seller owns both of those, but the house was only on one lot. And so what I did was I bought it together as one package, but when I sold it, I sold the lot by itself, and I sold the house with a different lot by itself. So I ended up making twice the money on that property.
Nice.
Yeah, and so times like that, it's totally worth it for you to get a survey.
Yeah, or ask the seller, do you have any other properties you might consider selling?
Right. Well, in my case, the seller did not know that he could have sold it separately and made money.
Oh, nice.
You see, he thought that it was all together, because when you look in the county record, it was all together. It's one house and two lots, but it was only one tax record. What I did was I broke it out to two separate tax records.
And guys, pretty much the only time, there's been a few times where I thought I was going to make a killing. So I bought a house and a lot, but then the lot was attached to the mortgage note that the house was sold on. So I couldn't just sell the lot. If I sold the house and paid it off, I could keep the lot. But, there's all sorts of different circumstances on when you can and can't sell a lot that's attached. And, a lot of times, if you had some sort of a survey and just asked the attorney, they'd kind of let you know.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So,
okay, to the appraisal here.
Right, and so appraisal is pretty obvious. Any deal that you close on, that you're going to borrow money, especially if you're going to borrow hard money, they will almost always require for you to have an appraisal. Or if you borrow like money from a normal bank, they will also require for you to have an appraisal. Now, private lenders, on the other hand, if they trust you, they would just they would just get the comps that you send them, and that would be good enough. You don't need to, pay money for an appraisal. And so private lenders are more flexible with that. You don't have to get them an appraisal. But any other case, then like a hard money or a normal bank lender, mortgage lender, then you're going to need to get an appraisal on the property to know what the value of the property is.
Yeah, it's always good to kind of buddy up with a few appraisers down at your area.
Right.
You don't want to take advantage of them too much. But I remember I had one deal I sent over to my friend who was an appraiser, and he actually, like, after he did the appraisal and saw how much I was buying it for, he came to me and he's like, "I'll do this deal with you." And I was like, "Really?" I wasn't even looking for. I was actually I had hard money lined up. And then he's like, no, he's like, I'll do this deal with you. He had an equity line sitting around, didn't even know. He pulled all the money out rather than having to, have the risk of a hard money loan. I had a partner that put up all the money, and we split the profit. So
awesome.
Some different ways I've worked with appraisers is sometimes when you're doing deals, you don't need an appraisal, but when you're first starting off, again, having an appraisal buddy is good. I had a buddy who would do what he called an investor appraisal for me, and he charged me like $125 and kind of just do like a quick appraisal for me. But sometimes I'd always say if you're buying properties outside of your town and you're actually going to buy them and you're not just selling the contract, appraisals aren't a bad idea. But I'd say probably only on 20% of my properties that I've bought have I ever got an appraisal on.
Right. Yeah. So like I said, when you're dealing with hard money lenders, then they'll want to see an appraisal. But if you're dealing mostly with private money or cash, then you don't need to worry about that. All right. Next, you have hazard insurance. This is property insurance, and you should always have this. Yeah. Don't ever close a deal, or don't ever let your buyers close a deal without buying this. I mean, this is extremely important because it's a vacant house. Anything can happen to it. It could get burned down. It could get vandalized.
I had the copper stolen out of one of my vacant houses.
Right. Oh, that happens pretty. That's actually a common issue in the lower end neighborhoods. People stealing copper. I'm working on a deal right now. 60 brand new townhomes from that the builder went belly up. Well, people went through it, and whoever went through it and stole copper, stole electrical. Basically, the inside they stole anything they could get a hold of, and it's a whole package of 60 townhomes. And so yeah.
Yeah. So that insurance, guys, the insurance is important. So and again, guys, a lot of the stuff we're going over here, when you're assigning deals, you personally don't need any of this. But we want you to make sure you can guide your buyer through the deal if they're not the most experienced. And if they are experienced and they're going through this, stay in contact with them through the whole thing so you can learn the steps that they go through and ask them a few questions. Okay?
Yeah, and I mean, even if they're experienced and because there's sometimes when I get to the closing table and I have forgotten to get insurance, and then last minute I remember it. So if I had somebody in the transaction to remind me that, I would really appreciate that. So you remind your buyers like, hey, I noticed when you look at the HUD one, for example, it's like, hey, I noticed you don't have hazard insurance on here. Are you sure you don't want to get that done? And so so just remind them. They'll appreciate you greatly, and they that shows a lot of professionalism from you, and that you looking out for the best interest as well, whether they're new or experienced. And so that's just a nice gesture, a nice thing to do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so next,
I was going to say, once you've made it through all that, it's just, it's time to get the closing date, that famous closing date, where you're spending your money before you got it. Okay? So, the closing date, you're always going to want to get it set up as soon as your buyer can bring the money to the table and everything's clear.
Right.
Aside from getting it done fast, Tim, I mean, the attorney will typically set a closing date as soon as possible because the attorney wants to get the deal closed because they don't get paid until the deal closes.
Right. Right. And so you help them move everything along. So if one party in the transaction needs to get a survey done, then make sure that you tell the title companies like, hey, my buyer needs to get the survey done. Can you please go ahead and order the survey? So the title company will contact the survey person, get it ordered. You know, and if they need hazard insurance, you know, you remind your buyer, hey, go get your hazard insurance, and then you review the HUD-1 settlement statement with them, and help them. I put some resources here for you, just in case if you never closed on the deal before and you want to get an idea of how much closing costs cost. You can go on Google and search for closing cost calculator, and then whatever city you're in. So like Wilmington, and one of the title companies in your area, chances are, will have a closing cost calculator on their website that that you can go on. I put a shortcut link here for you on dodeals.com/closing costs for one of the title companies that I use, and you can go on there and you know, calculate how much closing cost is for the seller, how much it is for the buyer. So I'm just arming you with some of these tools, resources, so that way you're more aware of what's going on and closing costs and all of that. But yeah, I mean, you know, you're gonna learn most of everything that I'm teaching you here. You know, by the time you get into the deal, you can learn all of these things anyway. So, you know, this is just to, you know, think of this as a reference guide for you.
Yep. And again, guys, we do, you know, Tim and I both do a lot of live trainings that, you know, once you're members of Due Deals and premium members of Connected Investors, you're able to take advantage of, to where we can talk to you specifically about your deal. The challenge Tim and I have about what we're doing right now is we have to kind of figure out how to encompass every possible thing that could happen, because it's our job to prepare you for what you're going to be getting into. So make sure to, you know, take advantage of Premium Connected Investor account and getting in Due Deals. And so this way you can talk to Tim and I about a specific deal at a specific time, and we can give you a specific answer, so you can make a specific amount of money that's on the HUD statement.
Right, exactly. Yep, and so, all right, so next, you know, is the closing part. And so on the day of closing, the seller and the buyer, are going to show up for the closing. Okay, the buyer is going to have the money wired, or they're going to bring a cashier's check to the title company or the closing attorney, and then the title company is going to disburse those funds, sends a check to, you know, sends a check or wire the money to the seller, sends a check or wire the money to the wholesaler, and sends a check or wire the money to you, the wholesale marketer, if you're not the wholesaler, you know, in this transaction. And so the title company handles all of that. All right, so just, you know, and this is the reason why Ross reminded you earlier, is that, I mean, even though we're teaching you all of this, so you know the ins and outs of what's going on in closing, but all of these experts, these title company agents and attorney, they know what to do. They know who to send the money to. They know what documents, what paperwork. They'll create whatever paperwork that's needed to close the deal. So you don't have to know all of the details. But just, you know, just trust that these people know what they're doing, then they're going to send you your money.
It kind of reminds me of whenever I took an accounting class. I was sitting there in accounting, and I'm like, why do I have to learn all this? You know, the programs just do it all for you. But it's just good that you know the back end. You know,
right.
It's good that you can understand all the moving parts. You know, if you just push forward and you want to do deals, done deals, and you just push forward, and just everyone you encounter, you just ask them, what do I need to do now? They'll tell you. That's what I did. I'm like, what do I do now? Okay, cool. What do I do now? Okay, cool. Get on a call with me and Tim. What do I do now? Okay, cool. You know, I mean, you're going to be able to do it. So don't get paralyzed by any of the stuff that we
yeah, I have never had a problem getting help from other people when I have a deal. Like, never, ever. I mean, people, you know, by nature, most people are very friendly. Most people are very good. They're very willing to help others. That's, you know, that's most people. And so anytime you have a deal you're working on, I mean, if you can't get a hold of me or get a hold of Ross or get a hold of somebody from Connected Investors or from Due Deals, you can contact your RIA group, any other investor. I mean, there's plenty of people out there very, very willing to help you.
But
so
they want to help people that are moving. You know?
Right.
Sometimes I get phone calls from local investors in my town who don't really have anything going on, and I don't really have anything I can I don't really have anything I can do with them with that. I'm like, okay, that's great. But when people call me and they have a deal, they're asking specific questions or they want something specific from me, then I can help them. So,
right.
Jump into the water with all your clothes on, because it's the only way it's going to happen.
Right. Yep. Jump in. Yeah. So Ross, do you have any more comments on this before we wrap this up?
All my comments are just going to kind of stem from again, Tim and I wanted to throw everything out on the table there. Whenever we were going through the paper trail of a wholesaler getting a property under contract, that wholesaler assigning the contract to you, and then you assigning the contract to your buyer. I understand it got a little bit confusing there. Whenever we talked about double closings and whenever we talked about assigning contracts, at first that might have seemed a little tough, but now I'm sure assigning a contract seems kind of easy for you. But we wanted to throw everything out there for you. We don't want the lack of information to be the reason that you're not making money in real estate. The only reason you're not going to be making money in real estate is because you're not taking action. Okay? So it's ready, fire, aim. Go out there. You have access to, Tim packed deals with everything. There's so many things that I didn't even know, were in there. He's going through the training, and I'm like, wow, that's in there. That's in there. Great, great, great. And then Connected Investors being, the most powerful network of real estate investors online. You can find the people you need to do your deals. So I'm real excited for everyone, Tim, because I know they have enough info now to be they're armed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So to wrap this thing up, I have some homework for you. Okay. If you haven't gone through and watched and practiced, notice I put the word practice in here, meaning actually taking action on any of these module 1, 2, 3, including this one, which is module number 4. Make sure you do that. And I'm going to put you on the spot here, Ross, because you and I mentioned about it, but we never confirmed on it. When do we want to do the next webinar so we can show people exactly how to use Connected Investors, how to use due deals beyond what we show them a little bit in this training, so that way they take advantage of the Connected Investors premium account, so they know what's all that involved, and same thing for the due deals membership. What's all that involved. So do you want us to go ahead and schedule that now? Or do you want to send them an email and let them know about it? How you want to do it?
Yeah, we can probably just extend out the webinar that we have.
So do it.
Figure it out. Yeah, and figure it out that way. The great thing, guys, is that Tim and I we're really into networking and masterminding, and he's in Texas, I'm in North Carolina, but in a few days we get to hang out together.
Right.
So we'll be putting our minds together and coming up with all sorts of great things to make sure you guys have everything you need to succeed. Because right now, guys, America needs you to be successful. Every time a real estate transaction is done, every time you flip a deal and put money in your pockets, you're going to get a neighborhood fixed up, have a new family. A new family is going to move into a new home. This is what the economy needs right now. So it's our mission to help you so you can pay it forward and help the country that's given myself and Tim a whole lot. And Tim's been to a few places.
Exactly. And so, America definitely needs you. Our whole economy needs small business owners like us to go out there, do some deals, get the money circulating again. To get our economy back, and so I guess tentatively then we'll go ahead and schedule it for next Tuesday, a week from now, on April 5th. Would that schedule, same time, would that schedule work for you, Ross?
Sounds good for me.
Okay, so we'll do that, and so it's continued training. So basically, we're giving you a bonus week, and the bonus week is all about, it's all about how to use the, how to use the let's call them the massive deal weapons that Connected Investors have for you, as well as Due Deals have for you. And so we're gonna share with you. All right, here are all of the massive deals weapons that we have to arm you, make you armed and dangerous to go out there and do a lot of deals and make a lot of money. So we'll do that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate your time. Please make sure to take some action. The world needs you. Your future needs you. Let's go ahead and let's
your family
do some deals.
Needs you too.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's do some deals. Let's get connected. Tim Mully and Ross Hamilton here. That's all I have for now. I mean, we laid it all out. Let's start talking about some specific deals in the forums, and we can help you out there.
All right, sounds good. All right, thanks everybody. You have an awesome you have an awesome week, and go out there, take a lot of action, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.